So I'd like to start out by figuring out how you got involved in this case. You are a longtime friend of Mr. Lozada's?
We've known each other for a while.
And you're also a professional contractor?
Yes.
So sometime in 2014, Mr. Lozada's contacted you about the renovation project for Jacob Ham.
Yeah, we talked about it.
And eventually you became hired on as the supervising contractor for that job.
I was the general contractor.
Excuse me, the general contractor. So I want to talk about the work that needed to be done for that project. As you testified on direct, your experience in construction is exclusively in roofing and framing. Is that right? But the project that needed to be done for Jacob Ham required more than just roofing and framing.
That's why I hired a subcontractor.
Right. So you needed to hire a subcontractor because you did not have all the necessary expertise to effectuate the project by yourself, correct?
Absolutely.
So the purpose for these renovations was to expand the restaurant, right?
Yeah, that was my understanding.
You're going to make expansions to the kitchen,
Yes.
expansions to just generally overall guest capacity.
Well, Sam told me that he wanted to enlarge his restaurant to be able to fit more clientele, and the restaurant was doing very well.
Great. Okay. And also to expand wine storage, right?
No.
Oh, so your project was not to expand storage for wine.
Well, I know that there were cases of wine stored, and there were bottles of wine stored in the actual floor of the restaurant itself, but the wine cellar area was not supposed to be touched.
Okay, my question was wine storage.
Wine store, I'm a little misunderstood because wine stored all over the restaurant.
Let me just back up. Are you aware that the expansions had to do with expanding more room for wine storage? Yes or no?
Yeah, for the restaurant.
Okay. Now, going back to the subcontractor you hired in this case, we can agree that for any project, it's important to hire a good, competent subcontractor, right?
Sure.
And particularly for this project, you want to hire a good, competent subcontractor.
I mean, I have a good reputation. I want to hire somebody who's going to be able to help with the project, but it's also about making profit. I want to be able to get the lowest bid, or usually it's the lowest bid, so that's usually the person I'll pick.
But also usually, you like to hire people who you know. Isn't that right?
Yeah.
And maybe one thing you might do is you might hire someone you've worked with before.
You can say that.
Or maybe another thing you might do when hiring a subcontractor is to hire someone who's recommended to you.
I mean, I have a lot of friends, and we always help each other out with jobs, and we're part of the same union, so we kind of usually work together.
But in this case, you did not hire someone you knew from beforehand. Is that right?
Correct.
You did not hire someone who had been recommended to you?
No, but he supplied me with the lowest bid. He seemed legit.
And so you hired unknown outsider Brent Kling for this job. Is that right?
I don't know if you mean unknown outsider. He did a lot of projects that were around the area, projects that I heard of that were pretty, well done, and he named a lot of the correct faces in the union.
All right. So let's talk about why it is you hired Mr. Kling. You have already testified you hired him because he offered you the lowest bid.
Yeah, he seemed legit. I asked him a few questions. He named the right people, so it's a combination of those things.
But in fact, it wasn't just that the bid was low. It was so low that you yourself questioned how he could possibly bid so low and still be able to turn a profit.
Yeah, well, that is correct, but he did submit the lowest bid, and I checked him out, and he seemed legitimate to me. He answered the right questions. He, knew the right people.
I'm sorry, you checked him out?
I checked him out by asking questions and asking around about different projects that he did.
Who did you ask these questions to?
Other general contractor friends.
You asked your other general contractor friends if he had heard of him?
If he heard of the projects that he did.
I'm sorry, so your testimony is that you asked your general contractor friends if they knew Brent Kling. Is that right?
Not if they knew Brent Kling, if they heard of the projects that Brent Kling had did.
And these projects Brent Kling had did, I'm sorry, that was not grammatically correct. These projects that you say Brent Kling did, you had personal knowledge of these projects?
I didn't have personal knowledge, but as general contractor, it was my understanding that these projects that I were asking about were done very well and done to a high standard, and believe that, you know, Brent was gonna be able to do the job well.
I'm just a little confused because you keep saying that the general contractor friends told you Brent Kling did this work.
They told me that these jobs were done and that these jobs were done well. Brent told me that he completed these jobs.
Okay, so
through that
Brent
connection-
told you, Mr. Kling told you that he did these jobs,
Yeah,
not your general contractor friends.
no.
In fact, none of your general contractor friends had ever even heard of him before, isn't that right?
Yeah, I mean, I think so, yeah.
So let's talk about why you hired him. We already established you hired him because he had a low bid, you're suspicious. But despite—
Objection, Your Honor, there was nothing mentioned about suspicion before.
I'll withdraw that. My apologies. So despite the fact that you were uncertain about this low bid, you hired him nonetheless because you were under financial pressure from Mr. Luzatis, isn't that right?
I had no financial pressure.
Mr. Luzatis told you he wanted these renovations on the cheap.
Objection, hearsay.
Your Honor, this is not offered for the truth of the matter asserted, rather for the subsequent actions of the contractor to hire someone he normally would. Overruled. Let me ask that question again. Mr. Luzatis told you that he wanted these renovations done on the cheap, isn't that right?
You wanted them done economical, but generally everyone does.
Is your testimony that Mr. Luzatis did not tell you that he wanted these renovations done on the cheap?
He wanted them done on the cheap, but I also saw that as being economically, you know, as very economical.
In fact, you knew that the future of the restaurant depended on this job, isn't that right?
Objection calls for speculation.
I'd like some foundation to
Mr. Luzatis told you that the future of the restaurant depended on this job, isn't that right?
Objection calls for hearsay.
response.
Your Honor, this goes to a present state of mind, or then existing present state of mind. At the time, the out-of-state or out-of-court declarant, Mr. Luzatis, told the witness that the future of the restaurant depended on this job, and it was his then existing present state of mind. Response.
Your Honor, I believe the question is being asked for the truth of the matter that Mr. Luzatis wanted these jobs done on the cheap because he's having financial issues.
Overruled.
So you knew that the future of the restaurant depended on this job.
Yeah, it could have. I mean, but he had other restaurants in the area.
But this is J. Pan, who's flagship restaurant, right?
I mean, I don't usually eat high class, so I don't know.
So now that we understand how Mr. Kling even came into the picture, let's talk about what you know of Mr. Kling's interactions with my client, Mr. Pickus.
Yes.
So to be clear, you did not know Mr. Pickus prior to the renovation job, is that right?
That's right.
And you also did not know Mr. Kling prior to the renovation job.
That's correct.
But you testified that you saw them chatting together.
Yeah, all the time.
But you don't know what they were talking about, right?
Yeah, I do.
Oh, what were they talking about?
They were looking at blueprints. They were showing them to migrant workers.
I'm sorry, did you hear them talking?
I didn't hear them, but through looking at them and seeing what they were talking about, it just didn't make sense.
So you do not know what they were saying, is that correct?
I didn't hear what they were saying.
You
but I
could not
know
hear what they were saying. And again, you testified that you saw them going over blueprints, but you did not hear what they were saying about those blueprints, did you?
No.
You couldn't hear them from where you were?
No.
And to be clear, all of these interactions that you observed, they all occurred at J. Penn, is that right?
That's correct.
You never saw them interact anywhere other than at J. Penn.
Well, like, Brent Kling was my subcontractor. We had a professional relationship, and the only time I was with Brent Kling was when I was at the restaurant. So, yeah.
So yes, the only time you ever saw them was at J. Penn?
Yeah.
And to be clear, Mr. Pickus, he works at J. Penn.
Yeah.
Mr. Kling was also working at J. Penn?
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
So you saw two people talking at work?
I mean, they were at the job site, yeah.
I want to turn our attention to the morning of December 26, 2015, when you arrived at J. Penn. You arrived around 6:10 in the morning, is that right?
I don't remember the exact time, but it was early.
Does around 6 o'clock seem fair to say?
Yeah.
And the only other people who were on the scene at that time were members of your crew, is that right?
I think members of my crew and of Brent's crew too. I don't remember which crew members were there.
There was no one other than crew members for the renovation job at the site when you arrived?
Yeah, I think both Blair's and mine, or Brent's and mine.
Now, we can agree that Mr. Luzatis, as the owner of the restaurant, would be concerned that his restaurant was just burglarized, is that right?
Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Luzatis would be?
Yeah, we can agree that he would be concerned about
Yeah,
his
absolutely.
restaurant
Objection,
being burglarized.
speculation.
The question was, we can agree that,
That Mr. Luzatis, the owner, would be concerned that his restaurant was burglarized, to hear that his restaurant was burglarized.
I'll overrule it.
Yeah.
But you did not call him immediately, did you?
I really don't remember what time I called him. I know I called him in the morning after I got down there, after I talked to my crew members, and then he came down.
You called him around 7 in the morning, is that right?
Probably, yeah.
Would it refresh your recollection if you could review something that would show that you called him around 7 in the morning?
Yeah, sure.
I'd like to direct court and counsel's attention to Mr. Luzatis's affidavit. It is the second page of the affidavit. It might say number 16 at the top of the page, starting with paragraph E.
Objection, Your Honor. I don't believe this statement that counsel's referring to was made by Mr. Porter in any way.
Well, I guess the question here is it going to help refresh his recollection?
Yes,
So
sir.
I'll allow her to place the exhibit in front of the witness to see if it will refresh his recollection.
Thank you, and permission to go through it.
Yes.
Mr. Porter, directing your attention to paragraph E. Go ahead and read that and just look up at me when you're finished.
That's what Mr. Luzatis is saying.
Okay, so Mr. Luzatis thinks that he got a call around 7 in the morning, is that right?
I guess, I don't remember what Mr. Luzatis was thinking.
And it wasn't just Mr. Luzatis, though. Let's talk about when the police arrived. The police didn't arrive until about 7:30 in the morning, right?
It was like 7:20.
Okay, 7:20 in the morning. So you and your crew were on the scene for well over an hour before the police arrived, is that correct?
I believe so, yeah.
And during this time, you're actually moving things around the crime scene, isn't that right?
Well, we're trying to check if like any of our stuff is missing. We were keeping all of our equipment, down in the wine cellar.
Is that a
So-
yes?
Yeah, we were keeping all of our equipment down in the wine cellar, so we wanted to see if everything was accounted for.
No further questions.